Well, hello there and welcome to Nowhere to Hide. We have a lot to talk about today, and it's going to be in the vein of Idaho is fast becoming the last stand for freedom. And that means that whatever decisions we have to make, we should probably be quite wise about them. Much of America has kind of become, like the rest of America, either corrupted or otherwise watered down to the point that there really is no difference between Team A and Team B. It's just, softer versions of socialism, some with Republican flavor, some with a stronger Democratic bent. But if you're interested in keeping Idaho, you're going to want to hear what we have to say today.
Press club are biased, all media, newspaper, radio.
To be completely blunt here, Brian, and there are plans to expand
indoctrination.
That's right.
Well, Idahoans are also concerned.
Horror shot. That line would be moving a little bit farther west.
I'm like crying.
Nobody wants to see
dark money is influencing policy in our state.
Well, that's not how this works.
Once again, welcome to Nowhere to Hide. I want to make very clear that I have no intention of trying to foment some kind of hatred or disgust for legacy media. I've just been watching it long enough, and actually was a part of it long enough that I really recognize the bias, and I'm encouraging you, see the bias for what it is, and take anything that comes to you through mainstream media with a grain of salt. Now, case in point, the Democratic National Convention wrapped up this week, and it was a love fest, at least from the standpoint of the media. The Media Research Center, which I have followed for about, I would guess, around 25 years now, has very meticulously followed media stories. And I mean, they will count the mentions of a particular person, a particular subject, and then they will talk about whether or not those mentions were positive, neutral, or negative in nature. I got to show you this graphic that it didn't really blow my mind, but it's so bold. You wonder, why can't more people see this? The legacy media's election interference is how the Media Research Center puts it. ABC, CBS, and NBC, when it came to coverage of Kamala Harris, 84% of the mentions, the stories, the portrayals of her were positive, right? You would expect that, though, right? She's their sweetheart, and they're kind of helping with her makeover to make her from the empty suit, who's in power right now, but somehow is going to fix everything that needs to be fixed, when she finally becomes president. Okay, I'm not sure how that works, but look at that other side of the chart, though. Trump coverage, 89% negative. Now, look, I'll be the first to admit Donald Trump can be an abrasive figure. He can bring his personality can bring some negativity, but this seems like a little bit of a lopsided equation. I mean, even the most negative people can still do positive things. But it seems like the Democratic National Convention was nothing but a week-long fest of fear. This is why you have to fear Trump, fear him. And really, that's all they have. And of course, the legacy media helps as a fear dispensary. And so I'm just warning, be cautious, when you hear stuff that engages your fear or engages your anger. By the way, whether that's from left-wing or right-wing sources, be careful. Often it means someone is trying to get inside your head. And let us not forget that the legacy media, lest you're still inclined to look for a reason to believe and to trust them, they're the same people who were telling us all along, this guy's great, he's sharp as a tack, there's nothing wrong with him. Right up until about a month ago, they threw him overboard and unceremoniously pivoted to Kamala Harris. Yeah, we can trust them on everything. I'm sure we can. So let's talk about ranked choice voting. Prop 1 is going to be on the ballot this fall, it appears. And here is a take from Idaho Freedom Caucus member Brian Lenny, who is a Idaho State Senator from Nampa. He's got a great take on this, and I hope that, I know people may get tired of this coming up every time, but ranked choice voting is one of those very concerted efforts to try to complicate things, or at least try to shift political power in the state by duping voters into thinking, hey, if we just water down your vote like this, suddenly your vote's going to matter more. Brian Lenny has a really good explanation of why that's not the case, though. Here's what he says. He says, Idaho is under attack by out-of-state progressive elites who want to destroy our way of life. They want to bring us to heel. It's another way to put it. These far-left activists have watched in frustration as their radical policies fail time and time again in Idaho. They can't stand that our state has remained a bastion of conservative values, so now they're resorting to dirty tricks to dismantle our elections. So this isn't about fairness at all. Brian Lenny says the most sinister part of Prop 1 is what it will do to our general elections. Right now, he says, Idaho's counties like Bonner and Boundary use secure paper ballots hand-counted to ensure election integrity. Prop 1 will destroy that, forcing us to adopt shady voting systems like the infamous Dominion machines and introduce ranked choice voting, a confusing, fraud-prone process that will undermine the sanctity of your vote. By the way, he's not exaggerating in this either. It takes a system that's working very well and complicates it in the name of we're just making things fair, but in reality, it's so it can be more easily gamed. Prop 1, says Brian Lenny, is a Trojan horse disguised as a simple change to our primary system. But he says it's nothing more than a ploy to rig our elections in favor of the radical left. The backers of Prop 1 have lied to Idahoans, claiming it will create a new, open primary. The truth, though, he says, it will blow up our current system, replacing it with a convoluted top 4 primary that paves the way for left-wing radicals to gain a foothold in Idaho. I don't think he's wrong in this assessment. Under Prop 1, he says, if you don't play their game, your ballot might be thrown out. That's not just an attack on our election process, it's an assault on the very concept of one person, one vote. Prop 1 will make our elections more chaotic, less secure, and way more expensive. It's a leftist scheme to turn Idaho into the next California, a state overrun by progressive policies that have driven people to flee in droves. And he says we cannot let that happen here. Idaho is a beacon of freedom in a country that's increasingly falling under the grip of leftist tyranny. This is one of the reasons why I say this is kind of the last stand. We are the remaining island of freedom, and we should probably pay attention. Now, one of the ways that we are seeing freedom eroded at the national level is through the admission, if not the outright encouragement of illegal immigration. And I'm talking to the tune of millions of people flowing across the border. Presumably, this is to create new voters. It doesn't matter if they actually cast the vote or not. With each person who registers or is registered as a voter, a ballot is generated. And as we know, what happens with those ballots, well, it's a matter of who counts them and who delivers them. Wink, wink, in the dead of the night. That's what can make the difference in trying to apply some legitimacy to an election. Again, one person, one vote. You vote in person, you show ID to prove that you are who you say you are, and you are in fact eligible to vote. That seems like a pretty hard system to beat, or at least it's a hard system within which to cheat. Well, this is one of the reasons why they need to fix it. So this is something that just broke this last week. The Immigration or ICE Bureau from the federal level has named 3 Idaho counties as limited cooperation jurisdictions, meaning they don't hold criminal aliens long enough for the nearest ICE officers to pick them up for deportation. And the question here from Theo Wald was, why are local authorities in Power, Bonneville, and Kootenai counties undermining federal and state law? Now, that's a fair question, and I'm really grateful to see Brian Allman from the Gem State Substack taking this on, because Brian approaches this, he doesn't just, knee-jerk, oh, wow, we got to go after these sheriffs. They're, clearly on the side of evil, but he takes a very close look at this, and as far as I know, he's continuing to investigate this. If you haven't subscribed to his Gem State Substack, you might want to consider doing that. But the question here, illegal alien sanctuaries in Idaho, here's what Brian Allman is reporting. He says yesterday, this was actually day before yesterday, so Wednesday, the Center for Immigration Studies updated its map of jurisdictions that limit or oppose cooperation with immigrations and customs enforcement. Appearing in that update were 3 Idaho counties, Bonneville, Kootenai, and Power County. So what is an immigration detainer? That's what essentially these counties are supposed to this is when they get someone in jail in one of these counties, if they believe that person is illegal, they can reach out to ICE and basically remand them to their custody. But here's the answer. Brian says he spoke to a retired immigration agent who explained how the process works. John Moore served in the Border Patrol for 13 years, then worked with ICE after that, rising to chief of staff for the El Paso sector. He helped enforce immigration law for many years, and he explained that jails either have an ICE agent on site or specially trained staff to evaluate the immigration status of incoming inmates. Okay, again, if they're incoming inmates, it's probably good reason to take a good close look and see, are they here illegally or not? If the agent or staff member has cause to believe that an inmate is in this country illegally, he or she sends a form to ICE called I-247. ICE then responds asking the jail to either hold the inmate for up to 48 hours longer than it otherwise would and to notify them of the inmate's pending release. ICE pays the jail to house these illegal aliens that are pending pickup and deportation. Now, of course, deportations don't always happen quickly. Our immigration system guarantees due process even for people here illegally. Many criminal aliens are given notice to appear in court, sometimes years down the line, then released back into society, and more said the vast majority of them never reappear. That's their get out of jail free card. So, does being listed in this ICE report mean that Bonneville, Kootenai, and Power counties are violating both state and federal law? Well, Brian Allman says not so fast. According to Kootenai County Sheriff Bob Norris, in a press release issued Thursday afternoon, the sheriff's office flatly denied the accusation that Kootenai County is a sanctuary county. In fact, there were a couple of sheriffs actually that spoke up and said, hey, they were a little bit concerned about this. Matt Edwards shared this tweet earlier today: Kootenai, Power, Bonneville, and Bonneville County, and ICE illegal immigration update. He says, we have confirmation from each of these county sheriffs that they do cooperate with ICE. We have confirmation from CIS that the ICE document is real and unaltered and presented as is. So the question that remains, why would Immigration and Customs Enforcement include these three counties on their limited or non-cooperative list when it comes to detaining illegal immigrants who are arrested and should be turned over to ICE? Look, I'm not saying that we need to be pressing our county sheriffs into enforcing federal law, but the issue of illegal immigration, for a long time, I've really been more of an open borders kind of person. But, I had a chance earlier this summer to travel to Germany and see what truly unfettered immigration can do to a society. And what I saw there was concerning, to put it mildly. Maybe you've seen some of the news reports coming out of the UK or other parts of Europe where, again, incredible amounts, huge amounts of immigrants coming into their countries, getting on the public dole and not assimilating into their society. In other words, they're there for reasons other than I'm just looking for a better life. And it has a very negative effect. So we let in what, 1 million, 11 million? I can't remember what the latest count is. It's probably north of 10 million people who are here illegally. Are we to believe that somehow that's not going to affect us? I think it deserves a closer look, and that's what I'm encouraging you to do, is take a closer look, make up your own mind, but let's not try to brush this under the rug or pretend that, well, any concern over this is just xenophobia or just outright bigotry. You have a country that has laws. If those laws are not going to be followed, then where else are we going to cut corners? That's a fair question to ask. Maybe it's time that we start asking these questions. I'm Brian Hyde, and this is Nowhere to Hide.
A press club or bias, all media, newspaper, radio.
To be completely blunt here, Brian, and there are plans to expand
indoctrination.
That's right.
Idahoans are also concerned.
Horror shot. That line would be moving a little bit farther west.
I'm like crying.
Nobody wants to see